Okay, great. So yeah, thanks again for inviting me to talk a little bit about CUAHSI and what we do, and discuss one part of CUAHSI's services, which is the time series related system that's been in existence for quite a while. So we have some years of experience building out the system. So let me see, go one more. So the next slide. So what I'm talking about today is so I'll start with a brief introduction to CUAHSI. Then I'll go in trying to show how to search and find data. The next time, then I'll go into explain to the process of how to get data into the system, essentially how to upload data into our information system. Then I have a summary and some questions. So, and feel free to ask questions in between. I have a few stops in the presentation where we can we're opening up for questions, but also feel free to put in a chat box or ask directly. I'm happy to be as interactive as needed, so people get the most out of the presentation. So, so that's why there's 50 different blocks. So feel free to ask if there's anything unclear or you need more clarification. So so I'm working for CUAHSI. So it's meant some people have asked us to put explain how to pronounce it. So that's what they came up as CUAHSI. We are again a nonprofit consortium of about 130 academic institutions. They are member organizations and they help with directing and organizing our tasks. We are mostly NSF funded. So we are providing service for the community to provide education services, deliver data, and help with supporting the community. Again, most of the important thing that we are tasked to do is to provide a community, to engage the community and build collaborations around tools, software, and education. We do manage several larger systems. Maybe people have heard about Hydrologic and also the time series-based HS system. In addition, we provide data management services and archiving for NSF-funded projects. For example, we have now started a project with the critical zone observatories. As they are going through a reorganization, they were looking for some organization to really provide some sustainability for their data services or for the data itself. But now they have it at criticalzone.org, which is not really fully funded or not meant to be a data management system. So they came to us to help with that. So, so that is for us a nice thing to really support the community. In addition to the data services that I'll talk about that I'm most involved in, we also do community services. So that means we have money that we can distribute for implementation grants, for a pathfinder for young students or grad students learning something new, and we're working with the National Water Center and the Weather Service on the Summer Institute, which is around developing the national water model. So these are additional things we do. One thing I want to also point out that if people are interested and need another venue to visit or to come to, we have a hydroinformatics meeting in July in Provo. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out or check our website. So that's one of the areas where we bring people together, in this case around hydro informatics, and data services. So the main focus, but what I'm concerned with, and I've been working now for CUAHSI for 5 years and seen us develop a bigger footprint and really trying to be a better, bring more tasks and tools into the community. So these are our main focus is essentially to enable science so people can use our tools. A big part of us is sharing, enabling sharing between data. So we see ourselves a little bit as the gateway between researchers and the data. So we host data, we provide access to it, so so data does not get lost. We help people to fulfill the data management plan. As projects complete or get funded, they need to provide a place where the data will live afterwards. And we are one of the areas, especially for the water community, where we provide that service. And we are trying to be very community organized and driven, so we really have the people helping us with what we should develop. So I think this gives us hopefully a good idea about what CUAHSI is. And are there any questions regarding the organization? Okay, if that's all fairly clear, I'll just dive right into the next part of the discussion. And really, so it's for data archival and dissemination.
Martin, can I interrupt you just for a second? I would like to just tell people you can also pose questions in the chat window. So while Martin is talking and a question comes up, you can write it down there and then we can address it later. Okay, just wanted to mention that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so again, it's I'll start with how to get data out of the system. So just often people wonder, okay, why do I do all this work? Why should I go to the process of putting the data in somewhere when it's not unclear how to get the data out? So a typical step for these are the typical steps that the user would go through from collecting data, then putting the data in, and at the end it goes into a system where people can retrieve the data. So I'm walking again the path backwards from how to get the data out first. Okay, so and I will try to actually do a demo and do it live. So hopefully that is not going to be detrimental. But it worked earlier, but we know it all goes. So what I'm trying to do is walk people through the process of how to find data using one of our tools. We call it the Hydro client, and it's at data.cuahsi.org. So let me see if I can open my mouse here. So go to Hydro client. So can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, still because there are 3 monitors. So hopefully that everything is still visible. So this is our tool for discovering data, and there would be one main use case would be, for example, you are trying to find data that has been published from the CZO community. So the way you would do this is would be spatially to the right. You see the data services that are available. So you see that we have around 100 different data services from very different scales, from USGS to NASA to citizen science groups to we also to Neon. We have Neon data in here, so it's quite a variety of different data services that people can use, and anybody can register data that can be found. So, for example, if at some point LTR data would be people interested to see it in here, that would be another service that it would enable here. For example, you look for CCO data. So that would be you're interested in. You can pick, for example, which service you're interested in, and then you can save the searches, or we can just go and search. So this would go to our database and finding the data that we need. So that is not what it should do, but there's a timed out. Oh, it has timed out. Okay, so so you see that right now it has searched a database. It found these data sets that were in the database. For example, you either can click on it if there's one, or you can go and filter the results. So there are many options of how to filter down the data set. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's probably a bit too confusing. But for example, you could just pick let's see if the keyword is better. The pressure. If you're interested in that, you can see all the different metadata values that are attributes that are available. Or if you click on it, it also pops up a little bit simpler. So here you can filter by the, for example, you look for discharge data. You pick the one you want. So you select what you're interested in. You would put it into your workspace. Essentially, what happens is you go through a process of searching for the data, then selecting what you're interested in. You can put it into your workspace. That means it stays available for you until your next visit. So it persists the data sets you're interested in. In this case, I've done that, and I put it in my workspace. You can see here. You can see it has completed, has gone through and download the data. So now the data is available for you to work with it. So in the tool that we have that most people would use would be just visualizing it. So you can simply go and open the data set. It then goes out and grabs it. So that would be a quick way of going through, checking the database, what data sets we have, identifying one that you're interested in, quickly visualizing. Okay, is it interested? Is the data meaningful to me? And if so, then you could go here and say, okay, now I want to save it as a CSV file. I start the process. At that point, it goes out and grabs the data, reorganizes it into a CSV file that then gets downloaded to your machine. So you can see here it's still processing. So depending on how big the file is, this takes between 30 seconds or a little bit longer, depending on the size of the file. So that is one way of getting the data. You can see now here it has arrived. So, for example, if you open it, so it'll open here. You can see a fairly, you can see the CSV with all the metadata that was downloaded. So and the amount of metadata that is downloaded depends on how accurate you were when you uploaded the data. There's a minimum requirement. I'll talk a little about that later. But this is just an example of how to get data out of the system. Don't want to save it. So, okay, you feel free to really do a little bit more play with the system. I don't want to go into too much detail to leave some room for questions. So for this process, just to quickly go to a few things, you can search by more and more keywords, and you can filter by. There are a lot of additional metadata that you can filter by. So so that was what I had now for the demo. Are there any questions for the way how to get data out of the system?
I have a question, Martin. Can you also select by region?
Yes. For example, that would be for example, here you go and you look, okay, what do I have in Boston? You pick and then you select an area. So now, but if you hit search now, it only searches the area that you are. Okay, well, okay, I have only I should have to unclick this. So then it only searches the local area. So yes, you can. It always searches the current map extent. If you said that earlier, so that you can subset the data spatially, and it will only display if they are less than 25,000 time series. Otherwise, the view becomes a little bit crowded. So you can see here all the dots and the numbers tells you how many time series are in that particular region. So so this you can see the distribution. So when you zoom in, you can see that the clusters break up. So it gives you more detail when you zoom in. So and that is for visualization purposes, so you don't overload the screen. Mm-hmm. But this gives you a clear indication where the data is.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions? So otherwise, I'll go deeper into the process of how data is actually how you get data into the system. Okay. So let's go back to, let's see where. Okay, so I'll try again really to do this more in a demo style and see how it actually would work. So let's go here again. Where's my? Okay, so for uploading data, we have a website on hydroserver.CUAHSI.org, which people would go there and to request a database. So what we are trying to do is to take out the hosting needs for the community. It has often been tricky if people try to build their own IT, trying to host their own services. And then maybe at universities, often the grad students goes away, and then nobody knows how the system is working. hardware becomes old. So we have gone from a process to where people hosted their own data to really host data for the community. So, and that's a fairly straightforward process. Essentially, you would just go to this website and request an account. That account provides you the database, so you can start uploading data really quickly. So, so let's try to go to that process so you can see how it can be done. So the one requirement that you have is that you need a Google account. Eventually, you want to move this to be used for Hydroshare account. That's more CUAHSI-related, but for now, it's a Google account you need to authenticate against. So the typically asks you who you are, so I can see I'm already logged in. I call it like this, just name it like this. Yeah, you have to give the service name. If you need more information what it means, you see on the right side, you can see some more information. The service name will be the name that your service is going to be registered with. So that's an important part, and that'd be so. You have to pick that wisely eventually. You put in additional information about the abstract. I'm not very creative now. Let's put something in. Say who you are, in case your contact email, and so on. So this describes essentially what you're looking for, what your service data service you will hold, and who you are. So once you have done that, I think I'll be a bit more creative here. Then you can just go ahead and hit create. What this one does now on the back end, the database is created for you on the spot. So and that the database is only for your data. So it's not shared with any other group. So you are the owner of that particular database. So this should take around 30 to 45 seconds, and then you should have to go through a process of authenticating, meaning saying so we don't want to have a robot create an account. So therefore, we have this process of activation. So in your email, you would see, I did have my account here. And see the account activation, meaning we successfully have requested the account. And there are two things that come with it that are important. One is that you have to activate, and the other one is a standard, like a publication formatting guide. And that is going to be important because this describes how the data needs to be formatted to fit into the ODM observation data model that is the basis for the system. I go to that in a little bit more detail later. But for now, just go and activate the account. So this means, okay, now I'm confirmed that the email that I put in was proper, and then I can continue here. And now I'm ready to upload data. So so database created, and we have two different ways of uploading data. For most people, the standard upload will be sufficient. This is just the 5 most important tables. Say essentially where, like the size, what, the variables, how, the methods. Sources mean who did it. For example, if it's would be an LTI in your case, and the quality control levels, meaning how was it? Is it raw data? Is it quality controlled? So there's just some indication, and the data values itself. If you have a bit more complex data set, then you would go to the advanced upload. But for most people, the standard upload will be sufficient. So I'll focus on that for now. So I mentioned earlier the formatting guide, and this is probably for people who want to get data in the most important document, as I mentioned earlier, describes the way we have to format the data. The ODM data model is very structured, so it means that it has certain fields and requirements for the metadata of the system. You can be fairly expressive, really describing many different parts, but even in each table, there are some optional fields and some mandatory fields. So, and this user guide explains this in more detail, what is required and what is not required. And when you upload the data, there are rules and checks in place that give you feedback of things that are not proper, and I'll walk through that in a minute. So just to give you a sense of how the Excel spreadsheet is organized. So the top row would mean essentially what you're collecting, like the site code or the site name. Underneath you see the type and the constraint. So they are fairly self-explanatory, but the rules are hopefully very well described. So what you do here is essentially you fill in your data, the spreadsheet, according to these rules, and then you can start uploading. To have a proper, or to be able to publish data, you need these 5 tables or metadata sets, like the site, the variables, the methods, the sources, and the quality control levels, and then the data values. So this is the minimum that you need to upload to have a proper service that could be registered with data.CUAHSI.org and be published. So okay, so we've seen the tables. You can see in front here again the description. So if you go through, I don't want to go into too much more detail. If people are interested, I certainly can do that, but for now, just go to the entire process to really see it from beginning to the end. Okay, so now once you have created a set of, let's see where I have to go. To go to my desktop. Here. So, for example, once you have created a data set, that would look, for example, this would be a way for organizing how a typical data set would look like. So we have to create a CSV file out of that you export from the spreadsheet, and this would be a typical way of organizing, for example, the site field. One important part is that there are several fields that have controlled vocabularies, meaning you're not free to choose what you want. For example, for the latitude, longitude, for the datum, you would need a proper term, and for the site type. The list of these controlled vocabularies that you would need to adhere to is part of the how the server side as well. So these are the control vocabularies that you would need to pick from to fill in the proper word. And it's case sensitive. So you have to be really careful with how that works. If you need an additional word that you have in your that you is not really part of what we currently have, for example, a new variable that is not that you are measuring, you can request this to be updated and add additional terms. And that would be something you add, you request. But you can see the whole idea is that we are trying to limit the amount of free text that people put in, so that there's a little less confusion than when you search. We are just going through the process with the CZOs, where many of the CZOs really pick their own way of nomenclature, and now they had 4,000 variable terms, all slightly different, which makes it really different to organize and construct something meaningful and do a proper search if the spelling or the meaning of the terms is not precise. So one big push into the system is to standardize the naming of certain fields. Okay, so go back here. That's where I was. So let's go to the process of uploading data. So essentially, you have gone to creating the size field. You have to first upload the metadata before you upload the data values, because there are linkages between the data values and the metadata. So let's start with the metadata. So it'd be fairly straightforward. For example, you take the sites and you can just drop them in. I showed you the sites field earlier. Now the data is ready to be uploaded. So it goes through, it validates the structure, if all the proper fields are there. Then it checks how is the content. Does the content adhere to the rules that are set forth in the spreadsheet? And if not, it will complain. So in this case, we have 213 of them were correct, and 2 were rejected because of it did not really comply to the rule. So here that's what you get back, and you then click to you open it up, or it tells you exactly, hey, what was wrong, what needs to be fixed. So essentially here the column in the relative long datum is invalid, meaning it does not come from the controlled vocabulary. In this case, it's just a simple spelling mistake. For example, then you could click in. You can essentially now edit on the spot. You change it, and then you can re-upload. I checked the other one first as well. Is there something else I need to do? Okay, the value stream type is not in the site type CV, so I have to go and check my site type to see if there's something. Go back, check the controlled vocabulary, pick the proper term that I would, for example, that I would want. This is a site type. Oh, where was I? Yeah. In this case, it would be just a typo. It would be stream instead of stream. So I would go back, go in there, change it again, say okay, try then re-upload, see if everything's okay. Now everything is correct, and everything is inserted. So this would be the process of getting all my sites in. And you have to repeat this for the rest of the metadata. So for example, just do this quickly, take the sources, the variables, my methods. No, that's not yet. So finish here. Then click again and add the other ones. again, you can, all the metadata you can just drag and drop, and then it manages, it runs through the process one at a time. So we try to make this as convenient and as simple as possible for simple cases. So now it goes to insert the data. We can see the sources and the methods are proper. There was one variable that was rejected. Again, it gives you the idea what was wrong. In this case, it needs to be discharged. This is wrong. It would need to be discharged. If you check the here, you go again back to the variable type, and somewhere down here is discharge. So I don't want to go into that detail, but I think you get the idea that there's always the need to go back and correct spelling and really conform to the controlled vocabularies. Okay, I'm fixing this here. I'm re-uploading. Oh, the column value type. What do I have in value type? Okay, there'll be a field observation. I will put it. Come on, go away. I'm re-uploading. Okay, I think that worked. Let me see. Value type. Okay. Good, I'm finished. So that means all my metadata has now been uploaded. All the key fields that I have are now in the system. I can see it here, what has been uploaded. So I see the sites, the variables, and so on. Now the next step would be the data values. Let's open up one. This would be a typical data values file. Important is that you have references back to the values we put in earlier, for example, to the site code, and that identifies unique sites, to the variable that identifies variables, and so on. So you can see that the data value is always linked back to the metadata fields we uploaded earlier. So and once you have completed the editing of the data values fields, you can go here. Again, you would drag and drop it in and upload it. Okay, so that would mean now we have all the bits and pieces for a proper service. So this is, at that point you would need to come back to CUAHSI and ask, hey, I would like to have this service published. Because then we would go through a process of let's see, from that outlined here, where we have the data is uploaded. So it would be in this spot here. So so again, the first step was really collecting. The second one is a step that we just done, uploading the data. It fits into the template, it's uploaded. No, here we are, sorry, we are here already. and then the request, we request the publishing from CUAHSI. We are setting up the web services and tying it into data.quasi.org. You would need to then, we work with you to update the proper metadata for the service that will be showing in the portal. So it's properly attributed, and you can put in a citation and everything. And once that process is completed, then your data that you just uploaded will be available for download in the Hydro client at data.quasi.org, the way I showed you earlier. So, so we've gone through the entire process from formatting to uploading to then seeing the data in the system. Okay, so let me see. That was I'm close to I think we went through all of this process. So what could be next? So people are interested to host data with CUAHSI. You can create an account. We can help with formatting the data, and then data can be seen in the data client. So these are the options that how process could go for publishing data. So so that's pretty much all I had. I wanted to show the key things that was how to get data out of CUAHSI. So you have the ability to discover data, and a process of how to get time series data into the system to be able to be found. So that was the key things I wanted to show. So I'm now opening it for questions. Thank you for now.
Thank you, Martin, for this interesting presentation. And I think most people are muted. If you would like to ask questions, please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is Suzanne. Hi, Martin, from Andrews Forest LTR, Oregon State University. And as you know, we're considering through EDI submitting our time series data into CUAHSI. And so I was curious, rather than each LTR site creating an account, it seems to me that EDI would be, because we would be submitting our data to EDI and then converting it into the ODMs through EDI. So would EDI create an account that represents LTR data? Is that how you see it happening?
What we're trying to do if there are too many services combined, it makes it difficult to really identify where the data comes from. And also, it's not helping with performance. If the database grows grow than several gigabytes, then it might be worthwhile to split them apart into smaller sets. So so you can have each LTER have one particular have their own service, or we can make it bigger. That's really up to how you want to do that. It would depend on really how much data, what is the data volume. That would, for me, determine what is the best way of having smaller ones or making a bigger one. So did it answer your question, or did I miss it?
No, I think that answers it. And it seems to me, I think what we were talking about is that each LTR site would convert their data, or their data would be converted separately. So yeah, it seems like each site would have an account.
Yes.
That they would upload from.
Yeah, I think that that helps to also identify a little bit better where the data comes from, and separates a little bit the people who can upload the data. So I think you don't want to have everything put together in one large database. That has not proven to be very performant. We are working on moving everything to a NoSQL, meaning that we are more performant. That's something we do work on right now, because we recognize that data that gets collected is higher and higher frequencies. So technology that worked 4 or 5 years ago will not be working with the high frequency data that is collected now. So we are working on really optimizing the system for speed. That should happen later this year, early next year. But we are open to other ideas as well if you prefer a different way. So again, our job is really to help the community. So we are certainly open for new ideas. Yeah. One thing that I also could like to add, there's also the ability to for people who are interested in finding a way to get the data out more effectively. So we have Jupyter notebooks that help researchers, students, to really simplify the way to get data out of the system. So there's a library for how to retrieve the data. We have sample notebooks how people can walk with the data. So it becomes really an easy way of getting data out in a common format. So that's something that we offer as part of HydroShare. So that's something to, just in case people are interested in looking at the programmatic way of retrieving data.
Nobody's asking questions, so I'll continue.
Yeah,
there are some LTR sites, and Don, you might speak up for this one, because I think we might do it with Lookout Creek, where the data is collected by another organization that may or may not be contributing to CUAHSI, but we also would use those data at our LTR site. So how is duplication of data avoided?
So duplication of we as CUAHSI, we are not double checking or quality controlling the data. So because we are not the experts on the data, so we are trying to make sure that the structure that we provide will help with as much of that the data is at least correct and has the proper metadata. The only way that metadata, that if the data that comes in can be deduplicated, is if it's within the same service and it has the same data, then be going through a deduplication service process where if somebody puts in the same rows or values, that it's identified and removed. If there are two different services where the same data exists, that's nothing that we can really control. So it would be onto the community to really figure out, okay, there's duplication, and that would show up when you search. You would see two identical records. So at that point, the community would need to say, hey, we have to do that. So, and we move the duplicates. We as CUAHSI don't go through and are able or have neither the bandwidth nor the expertise to quality control the data that comes from the publisher. That's why we always really tell the people who come to our portal where the data comes from, and have to go back to the publisher to do that. So we as CUAHSI try to be the gateway between the community. We are not a data processing we don't have the tools for that. So hopefully that answers your question.
This is Don.
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think where this problem comes up is that within the ClimeDB, HydroDB, we have a lot of USGS streamflow data. The one thing that's been nice about having it within ClimeDB, HydroDB, is that it kind of then better relates to the other data from that site. So it's in a easier search location, as you know, to be located alongside, say, that site's precipitation data or temperature data. So as we move the ClimeDB into CUAHSI, we'll have to address whether, you know, whether that duplication will be a problem, because I think most of that USGS data is now in CUAHSI. So
yes, I think we have let's see what we have. So we have the daily values, the groundwater levels, and the unit values. So these are the values that we are providing to the community through the system here. So if there's any additional data that is not part of what we have, we could separate that into a different service that people could contribute to. So, but there, I would maybe then split the data that you need for the LTERs into its own service, and people can contribute to that. So we're not mixing and matching within the data that comes from the LTERs and the data that comes from a third party. But if the data we have in here is sufficient, and we do have additional NASA data, so you get an additional set of services free of charge that might help with augmenting the data values that you have with the rest of the system. So you should evaluate if the data that we have currently is sufficient for your needs. If that's the case, then you would not need to add it. If you really think, yeah, we need additional values, then we haven't found that it's a real big problem with the duplication. I think it's better than having not the right data in there that you need. So the system can handle the additional data. That's not the problem. So so that would mean once you go down the path and really identifying the services and the values you need, we could go this way or that way.
Great. Yeah, it sounds like we might just have that discussion within the LTER to see how we address that.
Yeah.
Hi, Martin. This is Dwayne Costa. Yeah. I'm a developer with EDI.
Hey.
I have a question about on your data portal search page at data.cuahsi.org. Just looking at the temporal search criteria, I noticed that you do have a date range-based temporal search. I was just wondering if you've ever considered, or it may be there and I'm just not seeing it, sort of just a duration-based temporal search for time series of, say, you could search for anything greater than 10 years, that kind of thing, independent of any particular dates.
Yeah, we have thought about this, but the implementation that we had so far was that we tried to come up with to not make the system more complicated. We tried to just stay with a temporal for just the date, the range. We don't have that implemented. So it's something that we consider if there's we always update the system and make additional improvements. But for now, we have heard that question before, that people want, okay, give me all the data that's at least 10 years of values. But so far we have not done that. You can, what we have with each of if you go to the data services, I do have it here. No, not here. So yeah, you would have to go to the, yeah, we have no good way to filter by length of the observations yet. We could.
Okay, yeah, the reason I ask is this request recently came up within LTER, and we're actively adding the EDI data portal. So I was just wondering if you guys had already done that.
No, we have not done that, but again, it's not a difficult task, but again, it just takes some effort. But we have not done that. If that would be something that would be of high importance, again, it's something we could add fairly easily, because the length of the of each data time series is available.
Okay, thanks.
Let me see if I can. So I think they. Let me see if I can. I think it's part of the. Go here. You can see here we have a start and end date, for example. So as a data that, if you look at the data that comes back, you can identify at least when the beginning date time was, and when the first one and when the last one was. If you know if it's a continuous data set, then you can at least say, okay, yes, there should be data in between. Some data sets we have are not from a sensor, but people go and take samples. For example, we have the Seul network, which goes out and takes water samples, and that's typically just one value at one place. And then, or if there would be, it could be two or three, so we never really know how much values are in between. But so that's at least one way where we can give you some duration, but we haven't filled it by the length. But this is what we have.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? So if not, we reached the end of the hour for our webinar. I thank you, Martin, for the presentation and answering all of our questions. And
yeah. Thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful. Please feel free to reach out if there are any more